In this video, we will discuss close position 4-part chord voicings used in jazz. The first principle to understand when creating these voicings is that they are built from the high note down. For this reason, they fit into a group of voicings known as top note voicings. We will use a dominant 7th chord for each of our examples, but these principles can be applied to any chord type. Let's begin by voicing a C7 chord. For the first voicing, we'll start with C as the melody or top note. For our 4-note close position chords, we will just add the remaining notes as close as possible down from the high note. The notes of a C7 chord are C, E, G, and B flat. Voicing down from C, the next note is B flat, then G, then E. For the next voicing, we'll start with E, the third, as the high note. The next note down in the C7 chord is C, then B flat, then G. For the next voicing, we'll start with G, the fifth, as the high note. The next note down in the C7 chord is E, then C, then B flat. For the next voicing, we'll start with B flat, the 7th, as the high note. The next note down in the C7 chord is G, then E, then C. Each of these 4 voicings have no tensions. They just include the 4 notes of the 7th chord. We can add tension by replacing the root with the 9. This works because it is understood that the bass instrument is playing the root within the ensemble. Also, the 5th can be replaced by the 13. At times, it is also possible to replace the 5th with the 11. What tensions to use will be determined by what is available in the chord scale. For the C7 chord, we will first treat it as a 5-7 in a major key and use the Mixolydian chord scale. For the first voicing, we have C, the root, as the high note. If this was a fixed melody note, we would need to keep it. For our purposes, we will replace it with the 9, D. We will keep the 7. The 5th, G, can be replaced by the 13, A. And we will keep the 3rd. For the next voicing, we have the E as the melody note. Theoretically, we can replace the root C with the 9, D. But it is important to not have a note that clashes with the melody. So we will strive to always be a third or more from the melody note. Next is B flat, the 7th. And finally, we can replace the 5th with the 13th. So G becomes A. However, notice that the basic intervals from A to B flat and B flat to C are all seconds. When 3 or more notes are grouped together in intervals of seconds, they are known as a cluster. In general, clusters are avoided when voicing these types of chords, so we will keep the G, the 5th of the chord. For the third voicing, we have G, the 5th, as the high note. If this was a fixed melody note, we would need to keep it. For our purposes, we will replace it with the 13, A. We will keep the 3rd, E, and the root can be replaced by the 9, and we will keep the 7th, B flat. For the final voicing, we have B flat as the melody. Theoretically, we can replace the 5th, G, with a 13, A. But again, it is important to not have a note that clashes with the melody, so we will strive to always be a third or more from the melody note. Next is E, the 3rd, and finally we can replace the root with the 9, so C becomes D. These are all colorful voicings. Here is the sound of each with the root added in the bass voice. Let's also examine this chord as a 5-7 chord from a minor key, using the Mixolydian flat 9 flat 13 scale. For the first voicing, the 9 can become a flat 9 D flat, and the 13 can become a flat 13 A flat. In the second voicing, we can replace the root with the flat 9, since D flat is 3 half steps from E, the equivalent of a minor third. The 13 can be replaced with the flat 13. For the next voicing, the 13 in the melody can be replaced with the flat 13, and the 9 can be replaced with the flat 9. For the final voicing, we will still not use a 13 of any kind because it will be too close to the melody, but we can replace the 9 with a flat 9. Note that the 11 never replaced the 5th in these voicings because it is not an available tension from the chord scales. Here is the sound of each chord with the root added in the bass voice. Let's summarize. Close position chord voicings in jazz are built from the top note down through each of the closest notes of the chord. To add tension, the root can be replaced with the 9, 9 for 1. The 5th with the 13, 13 for 5. And the 5th with the 11, 11 for 5. The choice of tension is based on what is available in the chord scale. It is important for notes to not clash with the melody, so the next voice down should always be the equivalent of a third or more. In addition, avoid clusters, 3 or more notes a second apart.